an American classic, Paul Bunyan, written by James MacGillivray. Early one morning, after a ferocious storm, a huge cradle washed up near a town in Maine. Inside the cradle was the biggest baby anyone had ever seen. It took the milk of 5 cows to fill his bottle. The townfolk adopted him and named him Paul Bunyan because they thought he should have the kind of name that sounded like the big guy's name. Paul grew into a good lad and everybody liked him. He went to school just like all the other kids, but he was too big to fit inside the classroom. So he sat outside and handed his lessons to the teacher by lifting the roof. When school let out, all the kids would head for the old swimming hole. For huge Paul, it was more like a bathtub. Paul was interested in a lot of things as a youngster, but as he got older and bigger, he spent more and more time in the woods watching the loggers cut trees. The townfolk noticed Paul's fascinations with logging, and on his 16th Christmas, they gave him a present that was to change his life forever and turn him into a legend. It was a great, big, beautiful axe, just the right size. With that big double-bladed axe, Paul could cut trees faster than most men cut weeds. Whenever Paul logged, he was followed by prospective farmers, for he could clear enough land for a whole farm in one day. Paul logged so fast that soon most of the forests were cut, and people moved in and built towns using lumber made from the logs that Paul and his fellow loggers had cut. Life in the East was getting too cityfied for a fellow like Paul, who was 63 axe handles tall. So one day he headed west in search of more forest and new adventures. Soon winter came, and during the first blizzard of the season, it was so cold that snow itself turned blue. It was during this storm that Paul came upon a young baby ox, frozen blue and shivering in the snow. "Here, big guy," said Paul, picking him up under one arm and holding him close to try to thaw him out. Even after he thawed out, the big ox stayed blue. "You're such a cute fellow," said Paul. "I think I'll call you Babe. Babe the Blue Ox." Babe grew fast, and overnight he was twice as big as a barn. Paul thought it was great to have a pal as big as he was. So did Babe. Not only was Babe Paul's closest companion, but he was mighty strong too. When Paul set up his logging camp near a river that had too many bends in it to float logs, he tied a length of rope and an anchor to Babe's yoke, and Babe pulled that river straight as a pine log. Paul and Babe kept moving westward. As they were passing through Minnesota, they got confused during a ferocious rainstorm. Completely lost, they wandered around in circles for days. The big puddles left by their footprints remained full of water, and to this day, people still call Minnesota the land of 10,000 lakes. By the end of the summer, Paul and Babe had reached Wyoming. They were so glad to finally be out west that they got into a friendly wrestling match and they kicked up a whole mountain range, which is now called the Grand Tetons. After the match, they were pretty dusty, so Paul found a big mountain stream which he used to make a shower bath for him and Babe. When they'd finished, they went off and left it running, and it's now called Yellowstone Falls. Out west, among the giant trees, there were big logging camps that were just the kind of places for Paul. Now the loggers were big eaters. The head cook, Sourdough Sam, and his crew of 40 served up hot cakes stacked to the ceiling, mountains of 10-pound steaks and biscuits by the cartload. But no one was a bigger eater than Paul Bunyan, so Sourdough Sam's men made special 6-foot donuts for him. And, of course, for Babe too. Babe got special treatment from Ollie Olson, the camp blacksmith. The ox shoes he made for Babe were so heavy that when Ollie lifted them, his feet sank deep in the ground. One hot summer day, Paul brought a load of corn into camp, and the corn grew so hot in the scorching sun it began to pop. "It's a blizzard!" cried the man, and they bundled up and shivered at the sight of it. A herd of cattle took one look at the blizzard and turned blue on the spot. Late that fall, the skitter bees were flying north and south. They couldn't remember which direction to go since they had a bee stinger on one end and a skitter stinger on the other. Their buzzing became louder and louder as a stranger came chugging into camp aboard a shiny new locomotive. "My name," said the stranger, "is Joe Muffo, and I'm gonna show you something you won't believe. I've got an automatic tree cutting machine and a log pulling locomotive that would do your work in half the time." Paul was angry. "Out here, we use a double-bladed axe for cutting and oxen for pulling, little fella." But Joe Muffo continued to brag, so a contest was organized to see who could pull a triple load of logs faster, the locomotive or Babe the Blue Ox. "Come on, Babe!" cried the loggers as he and the locomotive pulled with all their might, snorting and puffing. When it was over, Babe lost by half an inch. Sadly, Paul and Babe decided to say so long to their friends and head north. Whatever happened to Paul Bunyan and Babe? Well, some folks say that logging machines put Paul out of business. Others say that Paul felt crowded and went to Alaska, where the logging is endless and a man and his ox have plenty of room. If you're 63 axe handles high like Paul, you need a lot of room. An American classic, Paul Bunyan, written by James MacGillivray.